Last week, Florida Surgeon General Dr. Joseph Ladapo, flanked by Governor Ron DeSantis, announced that the state would begin moving to end vaccine mandates, including those for public school students, likening vaccine mandates to slavery. Today, Governor DeSantis announced his intention to expand these efforts beyond vaccine mandates and issued an executive order banning all forms of mandated public safety in the state. Here from the White House with the latest on this story and the possible repercussions for the people of Florida and, perhaps, the rest of the nation is our chief political correspondent. Let's start with this. How has the Trump administration responded to this announcement from Florida?
No official response from the White House as of yet, but the general mood among the president and his inner circle seems to be one of approval, and one can only imagine they are grateful for this show of solidarity from the government of Florida after last week's combative Senate hearings, where HHS Secretary RFK Jr. was grilled by Democrats and even some Republicans on the committee over his recent firing of CDC officials and perceived anti-vaccination stance.
And just to pause for clarification, you say RFK Jr.'s perceived anti-vaccination stance. Why has there been disagreement on the nature of the secretary's views regarding vaccination?
I think I've been perfectly clear, but since you asked, many of his critics have characterized RFK Jr. as anti-vax because of his repeated declarations that there is no such thing as a safe and effective vaccine, which he reiterated during the Senate hearing last week, as well as a statement he made a few years ago where he called the COVID-19 vaccine the deadliest vaccine ever made, as well as his long history of outspoken vaccine skepticism and support for the claim that vaccines cause autism, as well as the CDC and FDA implementing new recommendations under his tenure as HHS secretary that make obtaining the COVID vaccine much more difficult for millions of Americans.
And what's the evidence for RFK Jr. not being anti-vax?
He says he's not.
It's quite a puzzle. Turning back to Florida, this announcement from Governor DeSantis reads as exceedingly broad. Is it actually the intention of the DeSantis administration to eliminate all forms of public safety from the state?
That is what the executive order says in plain English.
Can you elaborate for the benefit of our viewers?
I'd be happy to. While numerous groups prepare court challenges to the governor's order, all Florida officials and indeed all residents of Florida have been instructed to disregard established public safety standards until further notice. That means no more vaccine mandates as previously announced, but it also means no more public health policy of any kind. No more bans on public smoking. No more water fluoridation. No more nutritional standards for school lunches. And no more quarantine and containment plans for disease outbreaks.
If all public health policy has been repealed, does that mean abortion is now legal in Florida?
No, abortion is still banned after 6 weeks, and my source tells me Governor DeSantis is currently preparing another executive order that will ban all abortions in all circumstances and make performing or receiving an abortion a felony punishable by death.
Life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, the good book says. What about drugs? That's a facet of public health policy as well. Does this new order from the governor mean that recreational drug use is legal in the state of Florida?
No, Florida law enforcement officers have been ordered to shoot suspected drug users on sight. And I also want to emphasize that this public safety ban means an end to all workplace safety standards in the state as well. The Florida Occupational Health and Safety Program has been shut down, along with the rest of the State Department of Health, and all employees of the Federal Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, have been arrested and are currently being prepped for deportation.
Where are the OSHA workers being deported to?
Most likely Honduras.
I'm sure they'll have no trouble finding work in that nation's plentiful coffee fields. As is to be expected, these actions have received some pushback. Has the DeSantis administration offered any response to its critics?
Get a life, pussy!
I will murder you! If you ever have the fool's courage to show your face in my city again, I swear by God's beloved Son Jesus and by all the hatred in my heart, I will murder you!
I was quoting what my source in the administration said when I asked what he would say to a critic of the public safety ban.
That is a decidedly brash response to what many would view as reasonable reluctance to embrace what the government is doing. If I and my family lived in Florida, I may well have some deep reservations about sending my daughter to school in the wake of these changes. What, if anything, did your sources say to answer the concerns of parents like myself?
Fuck your kid.
That's also a quote from your source, speaking to a hypothetical critic?
Yes. I asked my source in the DeSantis administration what he would say to a parent who was worried about the health of their child following the end of public health policies such as vaccine mandates, and my source said, quote, "Fuck your kid," adding, quote, "If the child is strong, the child will live. If the child is weak, the child will die. Thus is the will of the Lord."
Who could possibly argue with that logic? What moral or legal justification is the DeSantis administration offering for this broad repeal of public health and safety requirements?
In a word, freedom. My source described government-mandated health and safety standards as a form of tyranny and said such measures can never be tolerated by a free people. He told me, quote, "A nation which forces its children to accept vaccines or adds fluoride to drinking water or requires private employers to install guardrails and provide protective equipment at their own expense is only one step away from becoming the kind of nation where people are disappeared without just cause by government agents."
This source of yours seems quite outspoken. What else did he have to say?
Nothing. He had to abruptly end our phone interview because he was set to attend a press conference following an ICE raid on an elementary school. I was hoping to schedule a follow-up, but unfortunately my source was killed en route to the press conference when his car drove through an unmarked railroad crossing and was hit by a train.
Ouch! Our deepest condolences to his family, if any. What about the legal basis for these actions? Such a sweeping repeal of state policy, and in many cases law, would seem to fall within the purview of the legislature, beyond the power of the governor to simply declare it to be so through an executive order. How does the DeSantis administration plan to follow through on these changes without the approval of the Florida House and Senate?
They're just doing it.
That's some brilliant strategy. Any idea on when we can expect to hear from Governor DeSantis personally about this?
That is up in the air at the moment. The original plan was for Governor DeSantis to make a public statement at a ceremony following the implosion of the Florida Department of Health headquarters this morning. However, those plans are currently on hold while the governor's staff works on finding a safe travel route through the state capital, Tallahassee, the streets of which have been virtually impassable since the traffic lights were deactivated and all street signs and road markings were removed.
Keep us updated. We'll be checking in throughout the day. On a completely unrelated note, is there any chance you'll be moving to Florida anytime soon?
Not permanently, but I do have a summer vacation home there.
You have a summer vacation home in Florida.
That's right.
Do you happen to have a winter vacation home as well?
As a matter of fact, I do.
And where is that?
North Dakota.
Ah,
I'm thinking of selling it, though. I don't get to use it much. The weather is terrible up there. It's so cold in the winter.
coming up, on the heels of changing the name of the Defense Department to the War Department, President Trump continues to reshape the federal government in his own image. What's next in line for a makeover? Say goodbye, Department of the Interior, and say hello, Department of Real Estate Development and Marketing. We'll review which power retail centers are set to open at the sites of which former national parks after the break.